Howdy, everybody, and welcome back to our Game Maker Studio 2 Fundamentals lecture tutorial series. So we're going to talk about rooms today. By default, Game Maker Studio creates a single room for you when you create a new project. So let's open that up. Our room here, as you can see, is a empty black void. So it's a bunch of grids. Our grids are going to be where we snap objects and stuff to when we bring them into the room. So we have a grid size of 32 by 32, but we can change that to 16 by 16 if we desire, or anything else. We also have the ability to choose whether or not we want stuff to snap to the grid or not. But you probably should just leave that on, because if you grab onto an object and press control, you can move it around regardless of the grid or not. So there's probably no real reason to worry about that. You can change the grid color if you want, grid alpha if it's too bright for you, and then you can zoom out, or you could zoom in, or get rid of the zoom, center it to fit to your screen, and animate it if you really feel like it. And these are two options. They aren't going to be important right now. Let's see, we also have our layers, instances, and background. So layers have a property known as depth. So you can see the background has a depth of 100, instances has a depth of 0. Negative values are higher than positive values. So negative value depth will draw in front of stuff that has a positive value, which means that if I had two sprites, the first sprite would draw in front of the other sprite. The sprite with the negative value would draw in front of the one with the positive value. Alright, so back to this instances. Instances are where you would drag objects when we get around to making them. And the background, of course, is backgrounds. So we can change the color of that to whatever we feel like. So that's an interesting color. And then if we wanted to instead, we could actually use a sprite as the background. And we could tile it or stretch it as we desire. And we could change its position, so -3, blah, blah. And we could even give it a animation. So if we wanted to have horizontal speed and vertical speed, we could have the background move. So, and then back to the depth. So let's get rid of that and put you back to being black, because that's generally useful. And let's see, what else have we got here? Oh yes, room properties. So we come down to our room properties. Our room settings allow us to choose different things that we want to have our room do. So in this case, we could have the room be persistent, which means it would, all the things in it would remain when you move from one room to another. But generally this isn't a good option because it doesn't really work very well. So we probably will never actually press that unless they get around to fixing it and making it work really good. So clear display buffer. So we want to do this, or else you'll end up with streaks as things move around on the screen, because that if by clearing the display buffer, it undraws everything that it drew the previous frame. Otherwise it would all stay on there. Then we can change the room width and height. So let's say 640 by 320. That'll give us a 16 by 9 aspect ratio. And we could also do creation code and instance ordering. So if we wanted to, so once we have objects, we can change the order they appear in the room. And viewports and room physics, which will be the other topics that we talk about later. We also have some additional layers that we can create, such as a tile layer, which we'll talk about in the next 2 episodes. And we have paths, which we won't talk about for a while. And we also have asset layers. So asset layers allow us to drag sprites directly into the room. So if we wanted to just have a sprite be visible, like if you had some background somewhere and that the player will never be able to reach, you could just drag the sprites directly into there rather than actually tiling it or anything. But anyways, I think that's good enough to get you started with rooms. So thank you very much for watching, and good luck with your programming.